I'm a long-time lover of the Call of Duty series, and I often attribute it to being the game that got me hooked onto shooters. I've attended midnight launches in 3 different countries, and been a day one buyer for the last decade. In recent years, the series seems to have been steadily getting worse, and unfortunately with Infinite Warfare, it seems like the current state is a messy, underbalanced, and for the most part, uninteresting affair. And I'm not just talking about the multiplayer. Something feels very different this year, and it might be enough to stop me coming back to the series altogether. Infinity Ward had something to prove this time around. Ghost was considered by the community to be a letdown, and they've had a full 3 years to come up with this. At this point, including Modern Warfare Remastered is little more than a saving grace. The game's campaign, which has long since been the reason I come to Call of Duty, it's not as inspiring as you thought it might be. A below average plot that doesn't feel like anything other than Call of Duty in space. This year's villain, Game of Thrones star Kit Harington, Jon Snow to you and I, feels gravely out of place. Setting the game across multiple planetary systems, while that feels fresh initially, it kinda just gets forgotten along the way. We're playing Call of Duty here, not Halo. Something that has been captured well, however, is the sense of space in space. In-orbit planets look fantastic, and they do have that Hollywood lick of paint that we've come to expect from the Call of Duty franchise. It's just such a shame that whilst the canvas is so colourful, the subject matter never really steps out of first gear. The campaign had a lot to live up to this year following the stellar outing from Titanfall, which is leaps and bounds above in terms of its campaign offering. So what of that good old multiplayer? Call of Duty's biggest selling point. The movement feels pretty identical to that of Black Ops 3. It might even be slightly slower, but it won't alienate anyone who played last year's game. The community was critical of Ghost's map design, and it's clearly feedback which hasn't been taken on board. The maps feel cluttered, as if too much is happening and lines of sight and cover are too difficult to figure out. The movement system should go hand in hand with the map design, but whereas Black Ops 3 nailed it, Infinite Warfare certainly doesn't. A game about guns needs to have some cool guns, and as has been detailed by many high-profile Call of Duty content creators, this is one of the game's biggest problems. Just like Advanced Warfare, better guns are hidden behind a paywall, only this time, those hidden away guns, which can be unlocked by the game's currency salvage, don't actually lose any stats. This plays a huge part in balance, and whilst Infinity Ward claim to be addressing this as of now, it's still an issue. Going the RPG route with weapons in terms of common, rare, legendary and epic classes feels a bit out of place in a Call of Duty game. Now it's easy to look at the game objectively and figure out what's right or wrong, but at the same time, the franchise has been criticised in recent years because it doesn't innovate. This year, it does feel like they've made a real effort to do that, even if it has been, in my opinion, unsuccessful. Whether it's a case of me maybe outgrowing Call of Duty as a franchise, or the franchise simply outgrowing its original player base, this really doesn't feel like a shooter I'll be able to throw myself into over the next year. Overwatch anyone?